Okay, just I explained, finished explanation of the Singapore general information. Now I'm moving to the Singapore polling result. So first question is, do you have confidence in your national government? Okay, Singapore 84, very much. United States 35. When did they take these questionnaires? Maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure. When is this? No information here. Oh, here. 2014. This is shifting. I just need to. Okay. I'd like to move in this one. Sorry. Sorry, I need to move it here. This one. Okay, this one. Okay, this one. Put here. And more bigger. Then more bigger. More. Actually, full screen. I will change full screen. How about this? Okay, so this we're going to delete this. Okay. It's not good. What happened? Oh, sorry, this one might be 3 line, 4 line. Oh. 5 lines. 5 lines. This. No. This one is cut. And paste here. And this one. And this one is supposed here. And this one cut here and place here. Okay, just this is a new okay, just explain here. And itself, and things itself, independent whether it contribute to or degrade life, liberty and happiness. As more Americans see DC as a acronym for dysfunctional capital. Dysfunctional capital. These are questions that deserve rigorous debate. Not like that. And this is oops. This. Okay, much better. Okay, much better. Second question, do you approve of the leadership of this country? Yes, very much. Singapore. US 35. Philippines 69. Zimbabwe 51. United States, Philippines currently, I believe, almost the same, I think. Do you see widespread corruption in government? No, Singapore. US 75. Philippines 77. Zimbabwe 61. Do you have confidence in Unno of national election? Singapore 78. Unbelievable. 78. Everybody support the system. United States 40%, Philippines 48, Zimbabwe 39. Are you confident in the country's judicial system? Singapore 85, US 59, Philippines 63, Zimbabwe 52. Are you confident in your local police? Singapore, oh my God, 88. United States 76, Philippines 80, Zimbabwe 60, 80. Okay, do you feel safe walking alone at night where you live? Singapore 91, US 73, Philippines 62, Zimbabwe 55. Have you struggled to afford food over past year? Struggle, okay? Singapore, no. US 16, Philippines 65, Zimbabwe 64. Maybe good statistics. So I'd like to, I like this chart, this information put in this material. It's very good. Oh my gosh, disappeared. Just statistics. Sorry, I just tried to change again. Maybe some here. Oh, okay, here it is. Just a moment, I try to erase that here. Okay, so then I put it here. And come here. Statistics here. So then I'm going to start first video. Lee Kuan Yew, okay, talk about his vision on democracy and explain the choices he made. Okay, he already dead, but so 2007, his interview. 言語の統一とか将来教育。He just explained in the past, and he just tried to emphasize on education and try to enforce English speaking. Before democracy, just life of standard level of life is head of democracy and stabilize country, and he tried to eliminate Communist Party and try to control the democracy, freedom. And better life is getting better, and young people frustrated. And open government they are asking for open government. Currently, Singapore is authoritarian, and rather than democratic country, well ruled, well reigned, might be reigned. So it's kind of his no difficult word, okay. And I just have a look. Okay, let's have a look.
If you don't have economic development, what are we talking about? We are sharing misery, starvation, half starvation, malnutrition. First, let's get a decent livelihood. Then we can talk about superior forms of government. And democracy is a superior form of government.
Singapore started out really as a fishing village with a port, a spit of sand with 3 million people. It now has a per capita GDP that is among the highest in the world. It is the most...
Takashi, you can hear? Huh? Yes, okay.
Extraordinary case of economic development.
We were not one people. We were so many different Chinese dialect groups, so many different Indian groups from India, so many different Malay, Javanese, Boyanese, Madurese groups, all brought together under the British to make a living here. we did not share one language, we did not share one future. So what are we talking about? So we have first to forge a society gradually through education, teaching everybody English as a mother tongue, so that English became our working language, so that today, after 40 years, there is some sense that we share a future. And if Singapore goes down, everybody goes down.
Het moderne Singapore verrijst als de Britse heerschappij eind jaren 50 eindigt. De jonge Lee Kuan Yew vormt de havenstad in korte tijd om tot een van de top-economieën van Azië. Maar dat kan hij alleen door zich van alles wat hem in de weg zit te ontdoen.
That fight was between a radical left, a communist united front, and us. The communists decided to boycott the elections. They made a great mistake. We won all the seats. So we had 5 years of peace and stability, and we built on it.
And how important was creating an open democracy at that time?
Oh, there was all the time a communist underground with a killer squads.
I'm not here to play somebody else's game. I have a few million people's lives to account for. And Singapore will survive.
So you have to provide security so that people were not afraid. That took a long time.
How did you establish that security?
Well, gradually, by detaining all the dangerous people, detaining without trial, we were able to reassure the people that things were getting better.
So you tell me, if you had to choose to live, and you could live in one of these African countries that is holding in election after election, and nothing is improving in your country, and you have no freedom of property, you have no real rule of law, you have no rights, or you could live in a place like Singapore, which would you choose?
I think we would not be here today if we implemented in full the original constitution the British gave us.
What would happen?
Disorder. Disorder. So we had to limit some liberties. Liberty of freedom of assembly. You must have a police permit. You can't keep on agitating and getting people excited. You need a permit to have a publication. So in this way we were able to gradually get some form of restraint in what you say, what you speak, what you do. I say without the slightest remorse that we wouldn't be here, we would not have made the economic progress if we had not intervened on very personal matters. Who your neighbor is, how you live, the noise you make, how you spit or where you spit, or what language you use. Had we not done that and done it effectively, we would not be here today.
It is a one-party state. They do have elections, but through various formal and informal measures, the ruling party maintains a very tight control. Now, when you look at a system like that, you have to ask yourself, of course it would be better if they would have open elections, genuinely free elections. But I don't fault them for not having done it for 30 years, because they were putting in place all the institutions, all the building blocks that have produced a modern open society. They were doing the hard work.
There's now a sort of a belief that you have to bribe people into being democratic. First you make them prosperous, and then they become democratic, which I don't think is necessarily the way to look at these. After all, we didn't, for instance, invade Iraq to make it prosperous. We invaded it to make it democratic. And yet we seem to be spending most of our money on building electric power plants and new ports and roads and bridges, as opposed to helping build political parties, civil society, and good governance.
People here clamoring or asking for.
By the way, I don't know who he is. Okay, sorry.
More participation in this, or more democracy, or how do you see that in the development?
They want jobs. If they don't get jobs and they have no income and they can't feed their families, we have a revolution. It's not democracy. How does voting another man to be the government and he can't produce the jobs, how does that help you?
Whoever governs Singapore must have that iron in him, or give it up. This is not a game of cards. This is your life and mine. I've spent a whole lifetime building this. And as long as I'm in charge, nobody's going to knock it down.
They have achieved what they've achieved precisely because they got the sequence right. But now it's time for them to democratize fully. And I think that if they don't do so in the next...
By the way, Takashi, can you recognize who he is? Former guy speaking, some brown-haired guy. Who can you recognize who he is?
This guy.
Yeah, Iraq or somewhere, Middle East.
Iraq? No, this is Zakaria.
Who?
You mean this guy?
Yeah.
Speaking. So this is Zakaria.
No. Just a former guy, not Zakaria. That guy. I'm talking about different guy. This one.
I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Maybe Middle East, some person. Okay, sorry.
Whoever governs Singapore must have that iron in him, or give it up. This is not a game of cards. This is your life and mine. I've spent a whole lifetime building this. And as long as I'm in charge, nobody's going to knock it down.
They have achieved what they've achieved precisely because they got the sequence right. But now it's time for them to democratize fully. And I think that if they don't do so in the next 20 years, they will face a problem. Because now they have an educated, middle class, totally aware population that sees the whole of the rest of the world and is frustrated. I can tell you from talking to Singaporeans, young Singaporeans are frustrated. And the government will have to start opening up more and more and more.
Oh, this is what he said is Singapore is frustrated and the government try to open the door because they are strict control for freedom of speech. They control the economy is 100% open globally, but many decades ago they very much concerned about communist people. So still remaining kind of old legacy for how to protect that country, but not anymore. So they try to gradually open, but still authoritarian country. The son is succeed in government.
You engage young people, the next generation, to come into to have that political engagement.
That's not for me, that's for my successors. People now in their 40s and 50s. I'm over 80. I leave this to them to decide. They have to decide how they have to rearrange the social compact.
I would be willing to advocate authoritarian rulers if I was sure that the country would get Lee Kuan Yew, not Mobutu or Marcos. The problem is there's no way of being sure of that. So I don't so much advocate authoritarian rulers, but I say when you find a liberal authoritarian, a Lee Kuan Yew, or the regime in China, recognize that they are actually building the blocks of a civilized, modernized government that will eventually be open and pluralistic, will probably even be democratic.
Okay. He accepted the democracy. Oh, next is Lee Kuan Yew had truth to keep Singapore going interview. So he is going to receive interview. Okay, this is an interview titled Hot Button Topics, found on the DVD on the back corner of the new book, Lee Kuan Yew Had the Truth to Keep Singapore Going. This kind of book is published. I personally recommend this great read, and I hope that every Singaporean will be able to read this book. My favorite part of the book and the great insights and personal opinion of the opposition political parties put forth by Lee Kuan Yew. She mentioned that they are not offering a viable solution to the many critics they have made on Singapore's more controversial policies. Okay? Lee Kuan Yew talking about what he's thinking about, and setting up this kind of space for discussion is itself not democracy. Listening from authoritarian, and his super reigning of this country is over the 50 years, and this country was going to building up, and they accept overseas smart people. Singapore rely on immigration. Okay? So this is, I think, many difficult words here. Let me try to study keyword. By the skin of one teeth. Pick. Confident. Confident, not confident. Confident. Upstart. Frugal. Gut. Sawyer. Besiege, not besiege, besiege. Caliber. Intimidated. Perception. Perverse. Chap. Lambast. Demolish. Breakdown. Meaning different. Breakdown. Hallucination. Chilling. This meaning different. Chilling. Killer instinct. Innate. Robust. Frequently using this word, okay? Content. Rebellion. Engulf. It was bound to happen sooner or later. Bound to. Tide over. Tectonic. Attributed. Crop up. Beholden. Peer. Putative. Patronage. Often using word. Patronage. That. Also using this word. That. Consistency. Constituency. The other way is 選挙権 constituency. 選挙民. Reliant. Trailblazer. Usually don't use this one. Tribulation. Not often to use this. Tribulation. Blast. Eclipse. Fluke. Validity. Stuck. Cynical. Entitlement. Entitlement, they have two meanings. Entitlement is meaning, but I forgot that the other one. Using entitlement, but also using too big. Let's get it right to smaller. Okay. Oh, it's okay. 資格権利 entitlement. Two meaning. They can use 給付金 and 資格 給付金 and 資格権 displace your entitlement 社会保障給付金 alienation. Okay, alienation. Candidly offend. Aspiration. Oh, okay. Okay, offend. Aspiration. Attenuated. not often use this. Syncretize. Not often to use this. Animism. Conform. Divisive. Impediment. Distinct. Anonymity. Conviction. Delude oneself into doing. Delude. Often using this one. Lisa. Law abiding. Using this one. Shun. Shimmering. Often used. Resentment. Soothing. Often used this. Sink. Cohesiveness. Adapt. Plato. Shamble. Often use this one. Shamble. Plot. Moan. Okay. Many words here. Some use, some not use. Okay. Now he's going to start making interview for him. PC to me.
You can tell by the skin of our teeth, and now the problem is.
Okay, just move. By the skin of teeth, he said. Okay.
How do we leave this place in safe hands? That's what it's about. For me, there are no more achievements. I'm not out to prove anything. I don't have to prove anything. I have lived my life worthless.
By the way, he made an interview about 40 hours, many cutting divided by many times, and he speaks about his thinking way, and also what he did in the past.
What is it I want to do now?
Those interviewers.
And secure the future for what has already been good and not to lose it. That's all. Whether it's going to be done by the PAP or any other person or any other party, that's irrelevant. We must keep a system that will enable this place to stand out and prosper and attract talent. And as long as we attract talent and we've got security and we keep an open system which treats everybody fairly and equally, we will succeed.
How to leave this place in safe hands. That is Mr. Lee Kuan Yew's top concern. At age 87, he's all too aware that younger Singaporeans are far more questioning than their parents.
Unbelievable. At that time, he was 87. Unbelievable.
Parents and grandparents ever were about the ruling party's way of running Singapore. He wants to educate them on the hard truths about their country and why it needs an exceptional approach to governance. That is why over the course of a year he sat down for some 32 hours of interviews at the Istana with a team from the Straits Times, opening himself up to be questioned and challenged in a way that he hoped would help him reach out to young critics. The evening exchanges ranged from the ever-sensitive one of race and religion to ministers' pay, the income gap, and his thoughts on issues that pique young people's interest. There were also personal moments when he spoke of his children, grandchildren, and Mrs. Lee, his wife and confidant of 62 years. Here are highlights of exchanges on 10 hot-button issues. Issues on which there seems to be a shifting consensus between people and government. The first concerns Singapore's survival.
We have not got neighbors who want to see us prosper. We are an upstart in this region. But we can survive for so long, and I believe can survive given the international environment, provided we have a strong system that enables us to maximize our chances. Are we not vulnerable? If we are not vulnerable, why do we spend 5 to 6% of GDP year after year? Are we mad? This is a frugal government here. We dug a deep tunnel for the sewer at a cost of $2 billion in order to use that sewerage water for new water, to be independent. So all the wastewater, all the non-potable water, clean water, is catered for in that way. You are not vulnerable. You'll be dead. They can besiege you. The Indonesians just cut off your sea lines and your business comes to a halt. What is our reply? Our reply is Security Council plus defense capabilities of our own, plus a security framework agreement with the Americans. They stop sand. Abundance of sand everywhere. Why? Malia says, even the present size they are a trouble. You let them grow some more, there will be more trouble. You've got friendly neighbors, grow up.
You need to persuade large segments of the population that we are not the economic country, that many of the things that are practiced in other countries, including many of the smaller countries, will not be considered, including having a more competitive political environment where leaders are thrown out.
We are not preventing competition. What we are preventing is duds getting into parliament. Look at the quality. Any person of quality, we welcome him. But we don't want duds in. We don't want Chi Sun Chuan, Charan. They are duds. They're not going to build the country. But any serious man turns up and forms an alternative. I say equal to what I say good. Then we are getting a proper an alternative.
Are you satisfied with the level of competition that exists now, given our system, or would you actually have preferred something a bit more competitive?
I've told you, we'd be quite happy if we get a small group of equal caliber contesting against us. I mean, you look at the nominated MPs, they talk more sense, right? Would they fight an election? No. So, but they got the brain power, they got the knowledge, but they're not prepared to jump into the sea.
There's a point of view that that's because many people are intimidated.
No.
Fear the climate of fear, crack down on dissent and
No. Are you intimidated?
Well, I'm asking you this question, obviously I'm not. But I'm just saying that there is a perception, and it's a very real perception. I mean, among those of us who come, usually interview people and all that, it's very hard. I mean, very hard to break it down, but it exists. It's fairly pervasive, even among the professionals.
If you believe you are any good, I mean, you look at this chap who stood up for gay rights, Siu Kam Hong. He's not intimidated. He's not intimidated. We have no objections to the vote and joins the Workers' Party. It takes us on, we'll take him on. But we can't join the Workers' Party and just let him lambast us away. We'll demolish him as hard as he tries to demolish us. That's part of the game, right? Why did I break down when I got out on 9th August? Because I left behind tens of thousands of people who had joined our rallies, and I knew that they were going to be handicapped because they were again a minority and leaderless. We provided the leadership. So when you tell me you're not fine, I say, God, you just speak to the SAF commanders and why do they do this? 2 years.
I forgot that, but this SAF means.
Singapore Armed Forces.
Singapore Armed Forces? Different. I try to find the Singapore. Where can I find the Singapore Armed Forces? Singapore. Okay, yeah. Okay, that's good. Where? Yeah? Yeah? Okay.
Of every young man's life. 5 to 6% of GDP, and a frugal government that builds up reserves. We do this because of hallucinations, or because that is the only way we can survive.
If Singapore thrives, will the PAP?
The longevity of the PAP is based on delivering the good life. Yeah. But some people will also say that...
PAP is the name of his party. I forgot the abbreviation.
Another factor is the fact that the PAP has very effectively and systematically demolished opposition.
What political party helps the opposition to come into power? You tell me. No, I'm asking you, why should we not demolish them before they get started? Once they get started, it's more difficult to demolish them.
Do you ever have any idea of the chilling effect doing that has on a lot of others who may be interested in politics but are frightened of? Are you intimidated?
If you do the same thing, then you must expect the same treatment. Therefore, you behave in a more civilized way, like more political, like Rosa Chiang, or even Chiang. I've never been rough with him.
Do the young ministers share your killer instincts towards political opponents?
Well, I don't know whether they do or they don't. I mean, they've not been called to account yet. But I think.
Do you ever, give them advice that they should be tougher, harder?
No. By the time you're past 30, your character is formed. You will not change.
But if there was someone that should be an emerging opposition politician, who among the current ministers would be able to handle them so robustly the way you did, and which you think is necessary?
No, they may not deal with them the way I do, but they will deal with them effectively. No, everybody has a style. And that style is partly innate and also by the experience you've gone through. It would not have been so robust and tough had I not had communists to contend with.
You said, unlike the universal acceptance of market economy, there's been no great rush for democracy.
Because it does not necessarily lead to better governance and stability and prosperity.
At no point in history do we have so many democratically elected governments across the globe. So doesn't that suggest that there are some attractions to democracy?
No, the greatest attraction is you can change governments without violence. In China, the greatest disadvantage is that you can only change governments by rebellion, Qi.
If you met Samuel Huntington today, what would you say with regards to that comment?
Say, look, I'm out of power from 1990. If the thing is going to go wrong, this is already 20 years, it would have gone wrong. It's not. And it's the careful selection of people who are in charge, in the cabinet, in parliament, in anti-corruption, the president. I envisage at some place, sometime, people will get tired of stable governments and let's try their opposition. It's bound to happen sometime. I don't know when. I don't think it'll happen in the next 5-10 years because they got a competent government. And supposing we had this recession and had an incompetent government and then tide over and jobs were lost massively, I think you're going to get a rebellion of some sort.
You describe the political changes in Malaysia as a tectonic shift. And we know from talking to some of the ministers there that part of that shift was attributed to young people voting for the opposition. And worldwide, in several recent elections, we've had this wave of young people desiring change. Do you see that sort of tide sweeping over Singapore?
Comes a time, if you to change is a plausible alternative, yes. But you can see the change is not, the alternative is not plausible. People come back after I've read all these reports. It's absurd paying the ministers so much. But they cool down very soon. Why? We are making this much in the private sector. You expect these ministers to stay in for 20 years and sacrifice their families?
Should ministers be paid millions?
Taking into account what has happened in the 14 years, are you satisfied with the outcome? I ask this also in the context of the public reaction to it. That there is still
there have been 3 elections since then, right? And every election thing crops up. If that were the big issue and we were not delivering, the elections have gone the other way. We are delivering, right? The system is working. Will it continue to work? I hope so. But will it need adjustments? Yes.
It may not have been enough for people to have voted against the PNP in the last 3 elections, but there's a point of view that the pay formula has changed, has altered the relationship between the government and the people.
We must keep a system that will enable this place to stand out and prosper and attract talent. And as long as we attract talent and we've got security and we keep an open system which treats everybody fairly and equally, we will succeed.
Some people worry that with the pay that ministers get, they will become beholden to the PM, afraid to go against the PM's wishes because there's too much to lose. Are you concerned about the development?
Shanmugam is afraid to go back to the law. He can go back anytime if he's built his reputation. Hen may be out of practice with his hands, but he's still a top cancer specialist. He may not be older. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. You don't measure up, you're dropped. You measure up. It's difficult to find a substitute. That's all. Simple. Well, you can find any number of putative reasons why the Prime Minister can use his patronage to keep a chap docile. Prime Minister who does that ends up with a dead cabinet.
And one of the points you made just now was that there are no yes men in cabinet because they have options, they can leave. You know, you mentioned people like Shanmugam, Peng Eng-hen. But some people would say, while they would agree, it's quite obvious that someone like Shanmugam has options outside. It is less so of some of the other members of cabinet. Especially those who have crossed over from, say, the army or from the civil service when they were scholars from the start.
If they are quality people, they have no trouble going on. If you are successful as a minister, you have no trouble going on.
What's it like to work?
By the way, his concept is also Italian, but good people dominate the governance, it does work well, right? So just why so forth is just single party, because the focus on he selecting good person, even ministers, developing good politics and so forth. That's the reason he did success, right? But in future, maybe no single party will come in, but currently it doesn't need to do that, right?
But with his son, the Prime Minister.
Our professional relationship with the Prime Minister is very correct. I mean, he writes to me as MM. I write to him as PM. If I have an important matter, I will see him, not he sees me. But there are times when we finish a cabinet, and I said, I'll see you in the office. He says, no, I'll stop by. We'll have a chat in the office. This is an informal thing. But, I mean, I think I'm not quite sure that the relationship is kept in a formal meeting at formal levels. I mean, I'm not talking to him.
But Lee Hsien-loong is a very good person and not much smart than Lee Kuan Yew.
As a father to a son, but as a minister to the Prime Minister. I mean, that's correct.
Has it been difficult?
No. Why should it be difficult? I don't worry about ceremony. He still wants to see me because I give him ideas, he bounces ideas off me, he gets some benefit. So, that's what it's all about. I mean, he doesn't see me for fun. He's got busy things to do, other things.
But have you had any disagreements with him? How do you resolve it with the Prime Minister? If you all disagree on something?
No, if he disagrees, he's...
Oh, by the way, he said Prime Minister, just their Prime Minister, no President. Singapore, no President. Prime Minister. Okay.
See, he makes the decision, that's his responsibility. As I said to all of the cabinet ministers, when I was active, and I was active when I was Prime Minister, I would go by my judgment of what the ground reaction would be, because I'm in touch with people, I'm talking to them, I visit the housing estates, especially the new ones, to see what are the new tenants like. And they all happen to be young children who've done well, leaving their families behind in the old estates, so I get the feel of it. Nowadays I see pictures, I watch videos, I watch TV. I go down for my constituency. Occasionally I go to Orange Ribbon or whatever. But there are huge gatherings. And you meet a select group of people who are already supporters of that movement, whether it's the trade unions or the constituency. So I tell them frankly, my finger is not on the pulse as it used to be before, and you have to judge.
Is Singapore too reliant on multinational companies?
In this globalized world, and the world is going to stay globalized because we are not going to disinvent all the communications and transportation technology, we are always competing across the board. So unless you are big enough to be on top of the pile in that particular industry, you are going to play a secondary role. You take Singapore. Creative. It was a trailblazer. Look at the trials and tribulations. You had to go to Silicon Valley, recruit people there, keep up with the competition, because we don't have the critical mass of talent. And in the end, all it's got now is MP3. Right? Your sound.
I don't know MP3. Huh? I don't know MP3.
Blast and so on. Other companies have caught up. And what is the future? I don't know. Or you take food and beverages. Teacher doing well. In that particular field, opium skins a few odd things. But once it begins to succeed in America, it will be taken over by PepsiCo. How do I know? Because I've attended PepsiCo meetings. They invited me as one of the participants. And they have collected all the foodstuffs around the world. And the outlets are in Latin America, all the cinemas around the world. So you come up with a good product, they pay you, take over. And they are across the board.
What your argument also seems to suggest is if you are a small country with limited resources, necessarily you can't produce, a world champion in manufacturing, because eventually you will be eclipsed.
Yeah, you will be taken over if you are successful, long before you get to world class. There will be a company that is already eyeing all these possible takeovers.
Okay, but Finland has produced Nokia, and Sweden, IKEA. These are companies which seem to punch way above what the country's physical size seems to suggest.
Right. Sweden, IKEA. Do we want to go into that? Have we got the wood and the designers? The Swedes are good designers, right? Nokia was, I don't know, one of these flukes in history. From the from a controlled society overshadowed by the Soviet Union, they broke through. But they are about 7-8 million. Can they keep up with the competition from Korea, from Japan? Watch it in the long term. How many bright fellows have you got with inventive, creative minds?
You made all of them very depressed.
No, I am not depressed. I am realistic. I say this is our capabilities. These are our capabilities. This is the competition that we face. And given what we have, our assets and our capabilities, we can still make a good living, provided we are realistic.
The more serious question I have is, okay, we don't have the critical mass to be manufacturers of the best things in the world. We don't have the critical mass to be the top innovators. What are our competitive advantages? It seems to me, listening to you, it's our ability to gather the right infrastructure, the rule of law, the system of governance. Are these attributes enough to keep us
Supposing
going?
you don't have those attributes,
No, now that we have those,
what would happen to
yeah,
you?
but are these enough to
What
keep
would
us
happen to
going?
us?
Are these
No.
enough to keep us going?
No. These are the basics which differentiate us from our neighbors.
And still on the topic of this MNC-reliant model that we have today, we've talked about the validity of it going forward, but are there weaknesses?
MNC, multinational company? I don't know. Something like that, right?
You've talked about the validity of it going forward, but are there weaknesses to the model that you worry about?
Well, the weaknesses are that the top MNCs may not come.
Multinational company may not come.
And you get the second tier who will be defeated by the top MNC. They would have gone to Vietnam because it's cheaper and smarter, and then the production in Vietnam will beat the production in Singapore. So what have we got to offer? Cheaper labor, cheaper land? No. Higher quality supporting structures to justify the higher costs.
Do you?
Okay, just question is why large manufacturing company is not growing up here in Singapore, or why multinational company try to come here for making a factory here in Singapore? He said high quality, high cost.
Who mind the income gap?
There's a price to pay for growing at a fast rate. Perhaps having to import lots of foreign workers and foreign talent, social costs associated with it.
We should grow as fast as we can sustain that growth. If we can make that growth and you don't make that growth, then we are stupid. You know, Singapore does not understand what slow growth means. When you get slow growth, you have less employment, less this, less that, everything is...
People at the lower end feel that to some extent the system is stacked against them. A large part of the growth benefits those at the top. It's, I think, made for a more cynical society as well, at the lower end.
Pressure of envy is inevitable. Let us consider the alternative. The alternative is slow growth. The disparity will still be there between the high end and the low end because it's globalization. And we're all poorer. Right? We're all poorer because if you do away without the foreign talent and the foreign workers, you know, providing competition in the coffee shops and they don't mind them in the marine industry, building sites, but coffee shops, easy jobs. That's on me. But let us remove that. GDP will go down by 2.5%.
As the income disparity widens,
Yes.
as this process carries on, wouldn't the political pressure on the Singapore government build to redistribute more and more to the...
No, I don't think we can redistribute more and more in a way which will remove motivation. Our biggest redistribution is capital gains. Everybody gets a home. Your home is sold to you minus land cost. So in other words, immediately you start with chips on the table. And 30 years later when you retire, that home you can multiply by 10 the value. Right? And next CPF. You keep on topping up. Giving them not to spend, but for their retirement. Shares. Every time we cooperatize, we give it to them at drop.
We are talking about this instead of disparity. He consider much more emphasize for pension plan. Okay, for 10 years later, 20 years later.
Terminal value, and the smart ones keep the shares. The spendthrift ones sell the shares, but that's before it's risen in price, and that's your choice where you've lost out. But once you subsidize every month, this becomes an entitlement, you're in trouble. So we say, growth bonus give you this big sum of money, give you. No guarantee that next year you'll have growth bonus, so you just watch out. Be careful how you spend it. So we create a different mindset in our people. Finally, you can say to me, so the chaps at the bottom will become anti-government. Do we change because of that, or do we say, right, when we will lose that number of votes each time? So we got to win from the median upwards. I mean, that's electoral politics.
How well are Muslims integrating?
Your views on multiracialism has been a cornerstone of Singapore's development over the last 25 to 2 years. In fact, at the press conference in August 65, you said that Singapore would not be a Malay nation or a Chinese nation or an Indian nation. And can I ask whether, looking back now, what is your assessment of how Singapore has progressed on this road to multiracialism? Whether you feel that we have achieved what you set out to do?
I have to speak candidly to be of value, but I do not want to offend the Muslim community. I think we were progressing very nicely until the surge of Islam came. And if you ask me, from my observations, the other communities are have easier integration, friends, both socially, intermarriages and so on. Indians with Chinese, Chinese with Indians, than Muslims. That's the result of the surge from the Arab states. So if you want to marry a Muslim, you become a Muslim, which is a very big step for any non-Muslim to take. I mean, your way of life is changed. And as for the oath, the pledge every morning, I did not believe at that time that we could ever achieve it. The Raja, being the idealist, wrote it out. And I looked at it and I said, why not? There's an aspiration. But as the years went by, with the resurgence of Islam, you ask me now, is an aspiration not achievable in my lifetime, probably also in my son's lifetime? It may be achievable after the old age has passed. Then the Malays, the Muslims are faced with the problem of modern education, science, technology, industrial revolution, knowledge economy.
So even in Singapore, it's highly dependent on what takes place outside.
Oh yes, it's a globalized world. So as long as Islam traveled to Singapore by sailing ships, it was an attenuated version of Islam. So the Islam in Southeast Asia was not Islam by the sword, but Islam by commerce. So it syncretized, especially in Indonesia, with Hinduism, Buddhism, animism. So with Malaysia, I mean, the Tunku believed in Bormos, and I think so does many Malays. And they say, if you put a chili up and you get the Bormo to play, they said, well, no rain. That's most anti-Islamic.
You are not confident that in Singapore things will turn out differently because we do not practice race-based politics or religion-based politics.
Religion overwhelms. Look, she will tell you that Islamic religion controls every part of your life, right?
Yes, but it doesn't mean that therefore as a citizen I will be less loyal.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you will be loyal as a citizen, but because you will observe and you are forced to observe by peer pressure and nothing else, you will have to conform. The generation that worked with me, Osman walked Rahim Isha, that was before the wave came sweeping in. That generation integrated well. We drank beer, we went canvassing, we went election areas, we eat together. Now they say, are the plates clean? Is it in the same washing machine? Halal, non-halal, and so on. I mean, they're all divisive. They are distinguishing me from you. I'm a believer, you're not. That's that.
So, just to be clear, are you saying that the existence of Muslims in Singapore is the main impediment to multiracial harmony in Singapore?
No, I'm not saying that. I think the Muslims socially do not cause any trouble, but they are distinct and separate.
So what do they need to do to integrate? I mean, are they doing enough to...
Being less strict on Islamic observances and say, okay, I'll eat with you.
But there are other ways to integrate without sharing a meal, surely.
But I'm telling you the reaction of a non-Malay, right? A non-Muslim.
I mean, when you say that there's a veil between Muslims and non-Muslims, I think most Muslims I know, have lived with the conviction that, they can be fully Singaporean and fully Muslim, and they somehow believe in the Singapore that you have, imagined for your citizens. And now to hear you say that there's a veil between Muslims and non-Muslims, my question to you is, have the Muslims been deluding themselves?
No. There are different
that they will be accepted.
When AFP started, they were opposed to Moors, opposed to our PAP Malay leadership, and they came out in opposition to it. But they can do better for the Malays. And we gave them the support, financial, and so on. Then they found that they couldn't compete with Mendaki. And they slowly came around because they were doing the same things. But in fact, Mendaki was doing real service. So we are not saying the position is hopeless. We are saying that there is that portion that's under this kind of influence. And all you need is one or two to spoil the whole relationship. One big bomb, we cannot stop the reactions.
What's the impact of growing Christian influence?
Oh, finally he said, I just went to the toilet in the first front of a Muslim. I didn't listen to what he said. But what he said? Takashi, what he said? He supports Muslim, but he just carefully concerned about insurgent of militant sort of Islamist people, right? But normally he just supports Muslim people, right?
I don't know how much his
overseas supported Muslims, but he was saying he didn't intend to alienate the Muslims.
Right. You mean what he said is alienation, right? He said. Okay, let's move on to Christianity.
The Christians are getting organized and coming up on issues like casinos and this.
But they do not go around with bombs on their bodies to blow people up, right? If they do that, we got a real problem and we'll stop them. I will stop the missionaries too. They are not lethal and they are law-abiding. You can change the law and they will abide by the law.
Even among some non-Christians, there's even concern, for example, that quite a number of cabinet ministers are Christian, and that seems to be tied to education as well, right? Because there's a growing number of well-educated Singaporeans who are becoming Christian.
The broader explanation for this conversion into Christianity is because Buddhism and Taoism and ancestor worship to the Western educated is not convincing.
Within the Singapore cabinet, when there are discussions on issues, to what extent do the ministers' religious beliefs influence the positions they take? For example, on moral issues, casinos, homosexuality, and so on.
No.
Does that ever come up?
I don't think so. No, they are modern thinking people. This is a separate part of their life. This is the reality of the society. We decide what is in our interest and how will the people react. Look, homosexuality will eventually be accepted. It's already been accepted in China. It's only a matter of time before it's accepted here. If we get a cabinet full of Christians, we're going to get an intolerant cabinet. We're not going to allow that.
I think some people worry that the other religious groups will respond to progressive proselytizing.
The Buddhists have
yes, that's right, the Buddhists have
what to do. And they must respond, they must defend their flock from diminishing.
And just now you mentioned that the core of the ministers tend to be fairly moderate, nominal Christians. How do you make sure that they stay that way? Or that, the people making policies like the permanent secretaries aren't, too inclined in one way? Let's say they may be a lay preacher.
The population as such will not vote for a person who makes his political beliefs. If you don't go and join the 7th Moon Festival, you will lose votes. That's one simple test of your flexibility.
I don't know what 7th Moon Festival. Chinese religion?
That's one simple test of your flexibility. There are certain Chinese rituals.
Oh, yes, Chinese ritual.
Which will not change. And the lower educated still believe in the old pantheons of the China.
Pantheons, I don't know what pantheon.
Chinese.
Confucius? Yes, Confucius. Koshibyo.
Gods and goddesses. Guan Yin and the rest of them.
Guan Yin. I don't know. Okay, Guan Yin. Goddess Guan Yin. Anyway, sort of Confucius.
Yeah. If you are that kind of a Christian and you shun their temples, you shun their 7th Moon Festival, this shun is no good. It's not part of us. You will lose votes because I don't see the grassroots being converted. If the grassroots are converted, well then it's total. Then you will also become different. Then we become a different society.
Will Singapore be forever dependent on foreigners?
You have been one of the strongest advocates of pulling up Singapore to foreign talent. I think the arguments are fairly well known, but would we be forever?
At the rate we're reproducing ourselves, yes. Otherwise, you'll end up in 2050, 1.5 persons working to support 2. Not tenable. The whole economy would collapse. And because the burden will be so great, the bright young ones will emigrate rather than pay those heavy burdens. Not possible. I mean, you watch Japan. The economy cannot recover because the older people don't spend so much and they don't work as productively as the younger ones. And their population will sink to 90 million from 127 by 2030. And the number of old people are growing, numbers of them.
Oh, he's talking about the encourage foreigners to invite into Singapore.
Right. They refuse to take immigrants, and they got illegal immigrants.
Oh, he criticized Japan.
It's not possible. Man. Why do you think we are asking Singaporeans to reproduce themselves? Because they are not reproducing themselves.
He said reproducing themselves is make baby. Right?
We have to depend on the children of the migrants to become Singaporeans. So that the ratio will always be a majority of Singaporeans. So we are making sure that they are spread out. And their neighbors are Singaporeans, and their children are in the neighborhood of Singaporeans and go to school with them. I mean, you cannot change the present generation, whether Indians, Chinese, or whatever. But you can definitely absorb the next generation because they come in, either they are born here, they were very young, they go to our schools, primary schools. They begin to talk like Tauri, and they begin to behave like Singaporeans.
Given that the proportion of the foreigners have gone up so much, also there's some simmering resentment. Is it time now to pay a bit more attention to, soothing the feelings of the citizen?
Some of them come from the smartest schools, high standards, and they end up winning the prizes in school. Bilingual prizes, other prizes, and some scholarships also. So Singapore parents know that their children are going to meet fierce competition. But my answer to that is, you want to start working on it. This is a part of war, right? You want to put investments in our side. You want him to join the Vietnamese or the Chinese team and be one fellow on your side putting it your way. And your numbers are diminishing. If we were back in the 1960s, 4 children per family, we won't have to visit. Just would not arise. But then we would never have the accumulated capital to create the infrastructure and the schools and the educational institutions that we have created. Because we'd be always trying to catch up with the population. Today we'll be barging with about 6-7 million of our own. But all the developed countries, the women have got equal education and job opportunities. The birth rates go down. What's that?
And I think it's been stated that whilst we allow foreigners in, we will try to maintain the racial composition in
Absolutely.
How difficult is that going to be in the years?
The difficulty will be to find the equivalent number of Malays or Muslims to get those numbers up, because the numbers of Muslims from Malaysia and Indonesia who want to join us are far and few between. Of course, if you let in the laborers, then you'll be flooded. But if you apply the same standards, educational standards, they have less competition where they are, and they got more opportunities. Why should they come here? There are a few Arabs who have come, particularly those married to our Muslim women who have been working in the Gulf, and they have decided, well, no, this is not a bad place, I'll come here, and we've not prevented women from bringing their spouses back. I'm not sure it's in large numbers, but I mean, it's a trickle.
Is there a worry that the influx of foreign workers into Singapore will further dilute that national identity we're trying to build, the nationalism that we're trying to foster?
Probably. But what's the choice? No, what's the choice, I ask you? I keep on saying, look, let's get 2 at least, if possible 3. It's not working. It's not working, I mean, what's the choice?
What has to change in Singapore before you consider Singapore to be a nation?
I think there must be a sense of identity. That you're prepared to die for your country, that you're prepared to die for each other. I mean, we just look at the Chinese. How many times they've been invaded, but then they recreated themselves when the invaders got weak. Because there is that cohesiveness. Same language, same culture. And the same Han race. What's that? Are we the same language, same culture? No. We have adopted one language, which is a foreign language.
She is very equal to every races who came from this country, right?
If we lose our second language, we lose all sense of our identity. What is the Singaporean? 44, 45 years. You don't create a nation in 45 years.
What is your own conception of what constitutes the Singaporean?
My definition of the Singaporean, which is to make us different from any others, is that we accept whoever joins us as part of us. I think that must be our defining attribute. If we don't have that attribute, you see, we are going to have only those who are like us. Chinese from China like us, Indians from India like us, Malays from Malaysia are different from us now. But in time they come here, they change. I think that's the defining attribute.
How can a country be green and grow?
Given your pessimism, so can you say therefore that you don't think that the world will come to any realistic multilateral agreement?
No, I don't think so. You watch Copenhagen.
What's going to happen?
No, I waste time. The Chinese have said, you want me to cut down, you give me green technology free. I have to grow. And you don't give me technology free, which will help the world, and can't afford it. Well, I got to pollute the air with my coal stations. It's quite a compelling argument.
Is there a lack of global leadership?
I don't think it's a lack of global leadership. What leader of any big country, or even a small country like Singapore, will say, okay, I give this up, I give up growth. I even have negative growth to save global warming. Do you recommend that?
Okay, this Singapore is very much emphasized on against global warming, right?
Global government. I don't think the Singapore government will listen to you. They want to meet their immediate needs, which is employment, raise living standards, avoid social unrest.
So are you pessimistic about the outcome? The long-term outcome?
So I said at the outset, we must prepare to adapt rather than to hope that we don't have to adapt. How much we have to adapt depends on how excessive the warming takes place.
What needs to change for the world to have a different mindset and resolve to tackle this
The
problem?
day the Chinese and the Indians find that hundreds of millions of people along this river basins who are farmers and more traders in small towns find a water shortage getting less and less because the ice cap in the Himalayas and the Tibetan plateau has diminished. That'll be a huge problem. Where do these people go without water? How do they feed themselves? They will move across to any place that will support them. So we're going to have real international turmoil.
How environmentally conscious are you? Do you recycle? Do you try to reduce your carbon footprint? Do you sleep with air conditioning?
I do, but what can I do? Without air conditioning, I will not get a good night's sleep.
Another part of being environmentally conscious is not to consume so much, and you're not particularly a great consumer.
No, I'm not. I eat less. I travel less.
That applies to your house as well. I mean, I haven't been there, but people who have been there say you've not done much to renovate and stuff.
I've told the cabinet when I'm dead, demolish it. Because I think I've seen other houses, Nehru's, Shakespeare, and it's a shambles after a while. People trot through and so on. And because of my house, the neighboring houses cannot build high. And I said, demolish my house and change the planning rules to what my land value will drop.
No, that's part of Singapore history.
No. Yeah?
This is part of Singapore's history. It's a very historical event.
No.
It should be preserved.
You know, the cost of preserving it is an old house built over 100.
She said he died. She's going to crash his house. Right?
Years ago, no foundation. Damp comes up the wall because there's no foundation.
It's currently their family caused problem for how to own his house. Do you know that? His heritage or his asset. Who's going to own this house? Michelle and other his sister family.
So the piling around my house has led to cracks.
It's like the old National Library. No architectural significance, but when it was torn down, I think a lot of people still mourn its loss today.
I don't think my daughter or my wife or I who lived in it, or my sons who grew up in it, will be known as lost.
Okay, this is a very long video. How do you think?
He's very clever.
He's very clever, right? How Takashi? How's your impression? It's big different from last week Australia. This is also authoritarian country. How do you think?
Okay, it looks to me, I don't know right or wrong. This video just showed up the sterility of the Lee Kuan Yew against those who sitting in front of him. They're looking to me like the baby bird in the sitting in the next nest box, asking the parent by to give me a feed, give me food. I mean, those young persons are just saying something ideal, which has been discussed on the textbook. The democracy is the best mean, and there is the crisis related to different religions, and global warming is the big debate. And that, just asking the parent bar to give them a food, and they don't understand at all about the process of implementing any policy to build up the country, build up the society.
Okay, it's a good opinion.
Yeah,
and
it's like, that I don't know how to what extent they are representing the Singapore young generation of Singapore, but it's
that's right.
Premature compared to the one we saw last week about the Australian discussion.
Observing very well. This is Singaporean current problem. Okay, Lee Kuan Yew is big father. It's like big father. Okay, and he take care of all his family and 5 million, 6 million, 7 million people so far. And he did after take over from him. Lee Hsien Loong take position as a prime minister, and Lee Hsien Loong married so. And then, following his son will take over, and the country will getting unstable, right? Vulnerability will occur, might be. So far so good. So democracy is all the people. Oh, you disappeared? Okay. 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 Okay.
I'm sorry, the Wi-Fi is...
Where you are?
Still Hanoi.
Hanoi, okay.
Can you come with the one you said again?
Yeah, okay. You can see it, right?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so this is Singapore problem is currently so far so good because of the heritage of Lee Kuan Yew. And Lee Hsien Loong just only succeeded his asset or foundation of this country. But they need to consider for the government, democracy of the people. Of the people is missing. Might be by the people. They're very well for the people. Okay, so let's go into moving on next one. Next one is very interesting. Okay, the Lee Hsien Loong. Okay, just add some comment of Lee Hsien Loong. And how about Trump? Is just observe Singapore observing for Trump action. Basic attitude no change. He tried doing well with United States. And what about freedom of media? Is he just free everything else? No. Stephen Sakul is a famous commentator, right? Economy is free, but not politics. Okay, they don't accept gay. And heritage, yes, I should say heredity. Okay, this is hard talk. The title of this YouTube. And this Stephen Saka he cannot criticize Singapore a lot. It means this country is very stable. Okay, so this is the end of the Singapore. So maybe this is we can 30 minutes. So we just in the middle of this.
Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, welcome to Hub. Let's start with the international political climate. Donald Trump is now President of the United States. He talks about protectionism. He talks about ripping up trade deals that have been bad for America. How dangerous is this new political climate for Singapore?
We are watching it very carefully. We of all countries depend most heavily on trade. Foreign trade is 3.5 times our GDP, probably highest in the world. We have free trade agreements with many countries, including the United States. We participate actively in the WTO, and we have depended on.
11時25分にね、いきなりステーキ行くよね。いきなりステーキ行きますよ。それで、奥さんと約束したのが11時45分。11時25分。だから20分に、とりあえずこれ終わって、帰ってきてから残りのやつ始めるね。で、1時から、江戸来るから。だから残りの今日シンガポール終わらせるから。Okay, let's continue.
On the system which America has built and upheld to maintain an open global intercourse of trade, commerce, investments, finances, which have prospered most countries most of the time. There's a new mood in America. President Trump reflects that, and we'll have to watch carefully what policies he pursues.
Tell me your reaction when Donald Trump says things like this, and this is a quote: "The globalized trading system has led to the greatest job theft in the history of the world."
Well, there are many views on that, and in Singapore's case, it has not done that to us. I think in America's case, there are many American companies which have prospered because they are all over the world, and therefore there's a base in America. But this is a view which a segment of Americans hold, and I think the president reflects that.
Worried? Alarmed?
It depends what he actually does, because campaign rhetoric is always slightly overheated, and then when the administration comes in, they settle in and they confront their realities and they have to make the choices.
But we already know one key act that he has already taken, which is to walk America away from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a deal which Singapore was very much a part of, and now the Americans want no part of it.
Yes, we were disappointed by that because we all spent a long time negotiating it. It was a hard-won deal, carefully balanced, and the Americans bargained hard, and so did the other countries. And we felt that, Singapore particularly felt, that it was important not just economically, because it's 40% of the world's GDP brought in the participants, but also strategically, because it deepened America's engagement in Asia and gave a rationale for America to take a close interest in Asia and try to make things work out well in Asia.
So what signal does it send of America's feelings about its engagement with Asia?
Well, I think it shows that on this issue, Mr. Trump was following through on his campaign rhetoric. But I do not believe that the administration is planning to pull back from Asia or to pull back from the world.
Well,
I mean, on the contrary, he said he wants a muscular engagement, and we'll have to see what that means.
Well, let me quote to you your own words from Time magazine last autumn, actually just before Trump won the election, but it was clear that he stood a chance. You said that if the United States went back on the TPP trade deal, how would anyone believe in the Americans anymore? You said it's not just about trade, it's about strategic issues too.
Well, America is a reality. It's still a great power. I think this has put a dent in the degree to which people can be confident of America's policies, but it has happened and we have to live with it.
Just the last question on TPP. Some other signatories, thinking of Australia and New Zealand, have said that they wouldn't rule out a TPP minus, moving ahead without the United States. In Japan, that seemed, I think, to be a non-starter. How is it viewed in Singapore?
If there were a consensus and 12 minus 1, 11 countries say, let's go ahead and sign the thing, just minus the US, Singapore would sign. Whether that happens, I'm not sure, because the Japanese in particular made very painful concessions in exchange for American concessions. And if you have a deal in which the Japanese have these concessions and Americans are not
party, I think that the political balance and the economic balance has shifted. So I wouldn't rule it out, but I think that it is not so easy to achieve.
We talk about uncertainty in Washington. You have to live with that right now. But there's also uncertainty in your relationship with Beijing. Singapore, going back to your father, has always sought strong relationships with both Washington and Beijing. Right now, I look at your relationship with Beijing, it seems to me you've got some major problems, perhaps symbolized recently when the Chinese impounded for a short time some of your military vehicles because they'd been on exercise in Taiwan. How worried are you about your relationship with the Chinese?
I wouldn't say that we have major problems. We've had some issues and some incidents. I think the military vehicles were an incident which happened to both of us and we had to handle it.
Suggested a lack of trust.
Well, it's a delicate matter for both sides. And I think both sides handled it carefully and there has been a satisfactory outcome.
To put it bluntly, the Chinese are furious about some policy decisions you've made, not least your decision to support the Court of Arbitration's backing of the Philippines in a dispute in the South China Sea. The Chinese feel that you are betraying a friendship.
No, I think you misparaphrased me because I didn't strongly support the court's ruling. What I said was that the court had made a strong statement, and there's a difference.
And let's be clear, the court, this is a respected international court, they sided with the Philippines.
The Chinese do not accept it, the Filipinos do, but it was, if you read the ruling, it was a ruling which in very strong terms.
In that dispute, which side, Prime Minister, has justice on its side? The Chinese or the Philippines?
I think we don't judge specific claims.
No, but you respect the court, and the court made a decision.
We respect international courts. Decisions are made. They can be scrutinized.
Okay, this international court for the South China Sea's decision.
They can be examined. They can be criticized. In Singapore's case, our interest is freedom of navigation, rule of international law, and also the cohesion of ASEAN and the relevance of ASEAN.
Yeah. I suppose, if I'm looking at this from the Beijing point of view, also your decision during the Obama administration period in 2015 to sign a deeper defense agreement with the Americans, and to the Chinese that looks like a statement of intent which works against their interests.
We've had this relationship with the U.S. for a long time. We buy a lot of military equipment from them. We train on quite a big scale in the United States. Our Air Force is there. And for now more than nearly 30 years, we have hosted American aircraft and ships in the region which pass through and stop in Singapore. And we think that it is the right thing for us to do because we believe that American presence in the region is positive for the region, and the security presence is positive for the region. It's brought about stability, it's enabled countries to prosper and to compete peacefully. And therefore, we believe it's in our interest to be helpful to the Americans.
I guess it just indicates that at a time of, let's be honest, rising tension in the region, and with Donald Trump talking about a new America First policy, and we discussed the protectionism aspect of that, things are getting very difficult for Singapore.
If America-China relations become very difficult, our position becomes tougher, because then we will be coerced to choose between being friends with America and friends with China.
That's a real worry for you.
And that's a real worry. Right now we are friends with both. It's not that we don't have issues with either, but we are generally friends with both, and the relationships are in good working.
But reading the signs, do you believe that Beijing-Washington relations are in danger of deteriorating?
I think the relations always require close and sustained attention on both sides. And I'm sure that the Chinese side do that. On the American side, I hope that they will have that attention, because on the American side, you've got many other issues to worry about. Europe, the Middle East, Ukraine, Latin America. And unless you focus on this relationship, both the win-win aspects as well as the areas where you're in contention, it can go wrong.
You just mentioned Europe. Let me switch attention to Europe for a second, and in particular the looming prospect of Brexit. When you look at the United Kingdom as a place to do business, as a trading and investment partner, from your point of view, has Brexit strengthened or weakened the United Kingdom? Well, we have no vote on this. From our point of view, we think that Brexit weakens the EU. We are not sure it strengthens the United Kingdom. You can make a living, you will not starve outside the EU, but it's an enormous market, it's on your doorstep, you can't avoid doing business with it, and if you can't influence it, you may not have strengthened your influence in the world.
This is what Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson said very recently. He said, let's understand what we're dealing with here. He said the world doesn't see Britain through the prism of being a member of the European Union. The nations of the world see and respect Britain as a major power in its own right. Do you think that, looking from Singapore, do you think that's true?
Singapore is a small country. We also are trying to make our way in the world, and we find it useful and in fact essential that we are part of a regional group, ASEAN. It is not as ambitious as the EU. It doesn't aim for political union or total economic integration, but it's a life raft which gives your voice a bit more influence in the world.
Britain's International Trade Minister, Liam Fox, has been in Singapore just over the last few days. Did you meet him?
Not this time. I've met him before.
But I think he met your trade official.
Yes, he did.
Britain now is very eager to begin work on, very far-reaching bilateral trade deals. And obviously, as an important trading nation in the world, they're looking at Singapore. Do you think Singapore is ready? Are you already in negotiation?
We're not in negotiation, but we would be willing and happy to do that. And when Britain is ready, I think we'll have many countries with which we will do deals, starting with the United States. You have to do that. But the fact is, you are doing it on your own.
There's an active debate in the UK about how these trade deals, bilateral deals, should be done and what values should be brought to bear. For example, opposition figures have said, look, if we are going out to countries around the world looking for preferential trade deals, we must not and cannot turn a blind eye to human rights issues, to abuses, violations, in the pursuit of sweetheart trade deals. Some have even mentioned Singapore. This is what Tim Farron, a leader of the Liberal Democrats in the UK, said. He said, if we're to seek a deal with Singapore, Theresa May, the Prime Minister, must raise issues of freedom of expression and freedom of the press in any trade talks with Singapore. How do you respond to that?
I don't see you being restrained.
Oh, this is UK Brexit, and UK expects trade with Singapore, but Singapore need to consider the freedom of expression, freedom of media. And now he's asking him what reaction for this.
And asking me any questions.
Okay, Takashi, we take a break. And the later part we're going to start 12:30. Okay, 12:30 or 12:35, okay?
I'm going to check out the hotel. I'm moving to the airport.
Oh, you are going to, you need to go into the airport?
Yeah, I have to check out on 12, but
okay,
yeah,
just
I think
just
I better check out and we'll connect again from the airport.
Oh, at the airport? Okay, just whenever you connected, just call me, okay? Okay, good. So later, see you.
シンガポールやるっていうのは大橋さんが教えてくれたんですよ。
本当？
はい、メッセージが来て、今度シンガポールだそうですよって教えてくれて、それまでイベントのやつがまだ全然画面に上がってきてなかったので、分かってなかったんですよ。
だけどあんたのメール、野宿言ってるよね。
あ、言ってます。なんか漏らしちゃってたんです
でもみんな見ないんだよね、きっと、野宿は出してもね。きっと。
メールはあれですね、なんかざっくりしか見てないですね。
いっぱい書いてる。ああ、来た。
むしろ Facebook の方は見るんですけど。
Facebook、高橋何時の飛行機？あれこれ。高橋何時の飛行機？聞こえない。何時の飛行機、高橋
？6時です。
夜？で、そこまで6時までいるの、そこに。オーマイガー。
いつも泊まってるホテルだと、レートチェックアウトできるんで、そのつもりで、大体やっちゃうんですけど、なんか、エイペックをやってるんで、ホテルが取れなくてですね。昼チェックアウト。
なんであなたの声小さいんだけど、なんでだろうね。俺の声はよく聞こえるの？
聞こえます。
あなたの声は小さいんだよ。
なんでですか？
なんで？オッケー。じゃあ、残りの始めましょうね。Okay, let's start. Okay, remaining 15 minutes.
No, I'm not. That's not really the point, is it? The point is whether you would be prepared to offer guarantees on your treatment of the press at home here in Singapore, whether you'd be prepared to talk about wider freedoms for the press.
I would not presume to tell you how your press council should operate. Why should you presume to tell me how my country should run? We are completely open. We have one of the fastest internet accesses in the world. We have no great wall of the internet. You can get any site in the world you wish.
So if the government
So where is the restriction?
So if the government of Britain were to make linkages between a trade deal and seeking guarantees about human rights, press freedoms, workers' rights, demonstrators' rights in this country, your reaction would be?
I would wait to react until I see it. You look at the Americans. They don't lack fervent moral causes. They promote democracy, freedom of speech, women's rights, gay rights, sometimes even transgender rights. But you don't see them applying that universally across the world with all their allies. Yes, they do it where the cost is low. And then you can take a high position. But you look at some of the most important oil producers in the world. Do they conform? Have they been pressured? You have to do business. The world is a diverse place. Nobody has a monopoly of virtue or wisdom. And unless we can accept that and we prosper together and cooperate together, accepting our differences in values, differences in outlooks, differences even in what we see the goals of life to be, I think it becomes difficult.
If we may just spend a little bit of time thinking about the values that are represented here in Singapore. It's a democracy. I think you're proud of your democracy, and yet the reality is that there has been one party in power, the party that your father founded and was the central figure within, one party rule ever since the independence of Singapore. Most people in the West would say that for a really active, successful democracy, you need a powerful opposition that has the very real prospect of winning power, but you don't have that in this country.
I wouldn't say it's one-party rule. The government has only belonged to one party, but there are many parties in Singapore, and the elections...
But Prime Minister, you know as well as I do. I mean, the number of MPs from the opposition in your parliament is just a handful. In fact, you had to pass a law guaranteeing them certain positions, because otherwise there'd be virtually none.
Well, there are now 6 elected, 3 unelected.
Out of 100
so we're
and
making, about 80 plus. And then we're going to increase the number to 12. But really, it's the workings of our democratic system. The population voted; they prefer.
Oh, I didn't recognize they had the opposition party existing. He said 12 seats.
PAP candidates to become members of parliament. They have confidence in their PAP to form their government and to govern them well. As long as that happens, I can have such an outcome in parliament. Once the government stops functioning, or for that matter, if I have a member of parliament who doesn't perform his duties and loses the confidence of his voters, and I feel him again, the situation will change overnight.
Mm.
It's open.
Well, your country is so open in terms of its economy, but so not open in some other ways. I mean,
just because the voters have voted for me and my party doesn't mean they're not open.
Yeah, but hang on a minute. I mean, just look at the realities. You've got an Internal Security Act which still allows people to be locked up without charge or trial.
The only people we have locked up in the recent decades have been terrorists and Islamist extremists.
Well, you've also actually taken legal action against teenage bloggers for things that they've written online. You've got Human Rights Watch saying Prime Minister Lee is imposing a mix of absolute political control and repression of dissenting voices that was the hallmark of his father.
If it was such a miserable place, you wouldn't be interviewing me. You would be going on the streets and getting vox popped, and all sorts of people would be saying terrible things about their government, and some of them would have emigrated. But the fact is, the Singaporeans are happy. They have chosen this government. We are governing the country and the people to the best of our ability. And millions more would like to come in if we allowed them.
Well, let's talk symbols then. About the identity of Singapore today and what you want it to look like in the years to come. There's been a lot of discussion, shall I say, inside this city-state about your repressive law on homosexuality. It is still technically illegal, thanks to statute, I think, number 377A, for 2 consenting male adults to have sex. It is a criminal offence. Now, I know that the Singapore judicial authorities choose not to prosecute men for doing it, but why not, as a symbol of change in this country, get that off the statute book?
It's a matter of society values. We inherited this from British Victorian attitudes.
And I'm sure you do not want Singapore today to reflect British Victorian
attitudes. We are not
attitudes.
British, we are not Victorian, but this is a society which is not that liberal on these matters. Attitudes have changed, but I believe if you had a referendum on the issue today, 377A would stand.
The
majority of Singaporeans...
You've been in power for, more than 12 years yourself. Is it not your role as a leader to signal to your people that Singapore can and must adapt to changing social mores?
On social, moral issues, I think the government's role is not to lead. It is, people believe this, they believe this, some of them believe this fervently. It's a vexed issue in every society.
Let me ask you I don't wish to sound rude in any way, but
you never are.
If any of your children or grandchildren were gay, would that change your perspective? Would you then think it were unacceptable for consenting adults to be criminalized in this way?
Okay, Singapore, they does not accept gay.
I think that it's a law which is there. If I remove it, I will not remove the problem. Because if you look at what has happened in the West, in Britain you decriminalized it in the 1960s, your attitudes have changed a long way, but even now gay marriage is contentious. In America, it's very contentious. Even in France, in Paris, they've had demonstrations in the streets against gay marriage.
So what's your personal view? Would you like all things being equal, to get rid of 377N?
My personal view is that if I don't have a problem, this is an uneasy compromise. I'm prepared to live with it until social attitudes change.
We're almost out of time. Just a couple of quick questions on Singapore's future and its future leadership. In 2008, you gave an interview where you indicated that you didn't think Singapore was ready for a Muslim, non-Chinese prime minister. Do you still feel that today?
I think that ethnic considerations are never absent when voters vote. It's like that in America, certainly in this last election. And in Singapore, it's much better than before, but race and religion count. And I think that makes it difficult. It's not impossible, and I hope one day it will happen.
Is it ready today? Is Singapore ready today?
If you ask whether it will happen tomorrow, I don't think so.
I mean, put it this way, one of your deputies, so one can assume a man that you believe to be qualified to be PM, if it should arise, is Tharman Shanmugaratnam.
Yes.
Now, he and I have discussed this, as it happens.
Yes.
He told me that he didn't believe he would ever be PM of Singapore, and polls suggest that most Singaporeans see him as the man best qualified to be the next PM. Perhaps it's time to reassess.
It may be I'm wrong, but my sense is that Singaporean voters will look for a good man, a man who can resonate with them, a man they can identify with.
Could it be Mr. Tharman?
It could be somebody like Tharman, but
he's your deputy.
Yes, indeed, it could be somebody like him. But these are factors which voters take into consideration when they go into the ballot box and when they identify with you. And I think there are very few countries where you can say the race doesn't count at all.
Well, that's race. Let's talk about name as well. I mean, the truth of the matter is that in Singapore, your father led this country for more than 30 years. You've led it yourself for more than 12 years. Do you not think that it is going to be difficult for Singapore to move beyond the Lee family?
Nobody is immortal. I will have to hand over as Prime Minister, and there will have to be a successor.
And Prime Minister, again, it's a little personal, but you did have a health scare last year.
2 years ago.
Yes. And, I mean, you recovered, and we all understand that you're feeling well. Do you intend to go on and on?
No, I don't. I've said that many times.
Well, so tell me about the succession. Your father always said organizing the succession is crucial. And I think you've said it too. So how is the succession going to work?
It's the most difficult job. I've assembled a team of younger ministers. Some are about 50, some are in their 40s. And amongst them, they are able people. They have to work together. They have to build a team. They have to build the trust of Singaporeans. And amongst themselves, they must throw up and acknowledge and support a leader.
Will you pick that leader?
I cannot pick that leader. They have to decide whom they are going to work for. And if I pick a leader and they don't support him when they decide that they are off to become the curator of the Victoria and Albert Museum or something like that, well, that's the end of Singapore.
Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, thank you so much for being on our show.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Lee Hsien Loong. Okay.
Singapore.
Lee Hsien Loong. How's you guys' opinion? Lee Hsien Loong told us, okay, he will not continue forever. He'll planning to take over to the other guy in future. Any opinion? Singapore is last video to show you. Next week I'm going to start Malaysia.
Do you have your this plugged in? Maybe.
No.
Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
They can.
Next week I'm going to start Malaysia. Takashi is okay? No, you are not there.
He's too. I can hear his voice. You need to open the volume a little bit more.
Where? No, he can listen.
Yeah.
Huh? Ah,
Sorry,
no,
Takai-san. ちょっと the volume needs to go up.
no, I think his voice is. How come his voice is too small? No, your voice I can't hear you. Not this one. His microphone.
Microphone, but
I can't hear.
maybe
you.
he cannot talk loud.
No, he's.
Huh? Better. Better? Yeah.
How about this?
Yeah, it's good. We can hear you.
Okay. The son is also educated, cultured, and so that I think he's managing not so bad. But the thing is, our successor, the next successor of the son, in 20 or 30 or next half century, how can he find or educate his successor well?
Huh? What? Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
What? What do you mean?
The point is, in the third generation, the first generation, Lee Kuan Yew and second, this guy, his son, and who can be leader in the third generation? This is a question.
Okay, problem is, Lee Kuan Yew is very super person. Lee Hsien-loong is normal person. This is a problem. Okay, they are not develop democracy. They need to consider for the future leader. Okay, if they try to keep their authoritarian regime, if so, they need to train more people for next to him. Otherwise, another normal person will come up. At that time, Singapore country will not collapse, but losing power in Asia. So if they try to keep their power in Asia, they need to get another Lee Kuan Yew. If they don't like it, if they need to go to change to the regime to also promote authoritarian to democratic country, this is up to them. So this is Lee Hsien-loong is not super person. He is normal person, right? So this is their current concern. Okay, now is yes, go ahead. Yes.
If they want to change the regime from authoritarian to the normal, more democratic, then say the party who studied 40 years under Lee Kuan Yew regime, then people is going to be like more like Japanese, who doesn't have a big idea, then they're gonna have to be in the hard time to live through, to get by through the democratic society.
Sorry, I can't hear you well. Why? No, not this problem.
Sure?
No, his microphone.
No, he cannot speak up.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, this one?
I think it's my problem on my microphone.
Well, we can hear you now. I think we put up the volume to max.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I think, yeah, they have been operating the country for 40 years under his regime, Lee Kuan Yew, and people has not been well educated to get by on the democratic regime. So once they have to come down from the authoritarian to other regime, then yeah, they're gonna have to be in the hard time. In the
Okay. By the way, next Wednesday, I'm going to make a lecture of Bhutan. Bhutan is, this is monarchy country before. They changed from monarchy to democratic country several years ago. And king stepping down for the govern the country. Maybe similar situation will going to happen for Singapore in future. Maybe. Okay. Okay, just we're moving, shifting to Ed. But now he is doing business here next to me.
全然大丈夫だけど、いや、今大丈夫じゃない。私今プレゼンするだから、今仕事中だけど。
あれ、Unnoさんも聞こえないですか？
あ、聞こえるよ。
あ、今聞こえますか？
うん。
あ、
今、ボリューム最大にしてんの。
はい、すいません。今、どこから電話もらいましたか？栗原ですか？
なんか今ね、エドはね、クレーム対策をしてる。
はい、だけど、はい。はい。
高橋、どこにいるの？飛行場の。
あ、いや、私じゃない。すいません。他の人です。本当に話わからないです。
ラウンジに入れるの？
理解ができないです。ごめんなさい。
ラウンジに入れるの？
はい、はい、
だけど、他の人をメールしました。
しょっちゅう使ってるからね。
はい、そうです。
はい、はい。いや、今、ホテル、多分、APEC があるからだと思うんですけど、ホテルが混んでて。
APEC あるんだ、今。
ダナンで出るんです。
はい。
ダナンなの？
いや、どこから電話しますか？
結構、ハノイにこう、揃ってるみたいで。
本当にわからない。私は、200件の担当ですから、今、すいません。
大変だね、彼の商売。ホテル業。クレームが多くて。
79、はい。それは私の電話番号です。あります。はい。でも、今、どこから電話もらえますか？本当に、すみません。どこから電話？はい。
今日はね、船橋さん来てんだよ。え？
再来週、日本です。
本当？
すみません。今、ちょっと、返信もらえますか？どこから電話しますか？お客様はどこに泊まりますか？はい。あ、西新井。はい。西新井？うん。なるほど。栗原ですね。
大変だよ、江戸。200室も管理してんだよ。だから200室も管理してりゃさ、しょっちゅうクレームの電話来て大変だ。
関原、なるほど。鍵をなくしてしまいましたか？
でもさ、200室だったらもうホテルだよな。ホテル1個管理してるもんでしょ。
はい。
すごいよね。
はい。はい。はい。入れました。はい。
ちょっと、トイレ行ってます。
どうぞどうぞ。
なるほど。
シンガポール終わった。
わかりました、わかりました。
じゃあこれ、
はい。なるほど。はい。と言います。なるほど。いやー、わかります。
なるほど、なるほど。
はい。なるほど、なるほど。ありがとうございます。お電話ありがとうございます。はい、OK。
これなんだっけ？
はい。 なるほど、なるほど。あ、今わかります。もう空港にいるんですよね。あ、OK。はい。OK、わかりました。じゃあ、今、ちょっとすぐ、はい、私は、ちょっと、会社の人と相談して、